Hey guys, welcome back. For some reason, I ended up reading 6 books in January, which to me is a lot. That's like double the amount that I usually read. Yeah, you know, just like get something to drink, get a little snack, make yourself comfortable because this is gonna be kind of a long one. Just have to get some tea. So I have 6 books, let's talk about them. First book that I read this year, actually, and also this month, is a reread because I love it, and I also don't have it with me right now because I lent it out because I love it, and that is The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. This is... the premise of the book is already fantastic. Basically, this book is Taoism explained using Winnie the Pooh, because apparently Winnie the Pooh is like a perfect Taoist character. Yeah. If you don't know what Taoism is, it's like one of the 3 life philosophies, religions of China. The book is from the point of view of the author, who has conversations with Winnie the Pooh as if he's like a real character, a real friend of him that he talks to, and there are little excerpts from actual Winnie the Pooh books, and the author explains why those stories are like very good representations of certain principles in Taoism. The thing about Winnie the Pooh is that when we think about them, we kind of see him as a kind of just a little bit of a dumb bear who's very lazy, very gluttonous. But from a Taoist point of view, we must appreciate him a little bit more. We must appreciate his simplicity, the way that he kind of goes with the flow, a very positive, friendship-oriented person that is very rooted in reality. It's hard to explain this because I can just hear you all thinking right now, Winnie the Pooh? Is that a good role model? But that's actually why I love this book so much, because every single time that I read this book, I just feel better about myself and about my life. One example that I can give is that they talk to the owl in Winnie the Pooh, you know, and he kind of represents scholarly academics in how they're always trying to overcomplicate everything, whereas it's sometimes better to appreciate the simplicities of life like Winnie the Pooh does, because if you don't try to overcomplicate things, if you don't try to force knowledge on everything, usually the right, most simple solution to a problem will arise. For now, I just want to say I highly recommend this book if you want to be introduced to Taoism, and also if you want to read a book that talks about life in a way that is very different from what you're probably used to just like in Western culture and stuff. I think I'm gonna reread this book very often because it makes me just so happy and feel very cozy every time I read it. And then the next book that I read in January is The Little Prince by Antoine Saint-Exupery, and this is like a classic children's tale that's actually really great for adults as well. The beauty of this novel is that it's about a little prince that lives on a little planet, and he like strands on Earth, and then together with the author, again a book that is written from the perspective of the author, he befriends the little prince, and then together they go on this little like trip through the galaxy along planets. They meet all sorts of different people who present like kind of a little, how would you say that, like critique of society. My favorite part was when they talk to like a businessman, and he's talking about how he's counting all the stars because that's good to have knowledge on how many stars there is, when in reality we can all see that he's wasting his time basically. If you've ever seen, you know, the little drawing of thing that looks like a hat, but actually it's the author who drew a snake that has eaten an elephant, and he's like very angry at all the adults who think that it's just a hat and then they don't see that it's a snake who ate an elephant. That's from this book. In essence, this book is a critique on adults and adulthood. The Little Prince is kind of just like a symbol for childlike innocence, you know, he's critiquing all the dumb things that adults do. I enjoyed this, but I have to be honest, I don't really understand the huge hype around this book. If you go on Goodreads, everyone freaking adores this book and thinks it's like the best thing ever for critiquing adulthood. I don't really understand it. I mean, I agree with it, but I don't think it's like an earth-shattering idea, right? It's not. I don't know, maybe this book was like the first book that ever came up with that idea. I don't know. I was just reading it and I thought that's a really nice message. I agree with that, but I don't think this book is like changing the face of the world and bringing all these cosmic new ideas in my mind. So although I enjoyed this book, I gave it like 3 stars. I am like slightly disappointed. I don't really understand why people like absolutely love and adore this book. The next book that I read is a Dutch book that has not been translated, so I'm just gonna be super quick about it, but I do know that like 5% of the people who watch these videos are Dutch, so I'm just gonna very quickly, just zoom mention it. Oh god, oh, why does this always happen? Anyway, the book that I read was De Meeste Mensen Deugen by Rutger Bregman, which translates to Most People Are Okay, I think. It's being advertised everywhere in the Netherlands, and I just want to say it's worth it, worth the hype. I really love this. Read it. Anyway, the last 3 books that I'm going to talk about I read in my reading vlog, so if you want to see like my real-time experience reading these books, go to the reading vlog. So the 4th book that I read this month was The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This book, can I just say, it was supposed to be 100% my thing, you know? Russian folklore, whimsical magical element, haunted forests, totally my thing. But I ended up not really loving it. I liked it. It's like a 3-star read for me, but I didn't love it. Let's start with the characters. We have our main character Vasha, who can see spirits. Like in Russian folklore, spirits are real. Everyone knows that they exist, but she's the only one that can actually communicate with them and see them. It's kind of your typical character who's like opposing all the general expected feminine roles. She doesn't want to marry, she rejects the religion, she wants to do horse riding like the boys do. It's a little cliche, but I did really like it because it was very clearly supposed to be, on one hand, a symbol for feminism, you know, someone who was like rejecting all the general feminine roles, but also very nicely a symbol for not wanting to grow up. Everyone is telling her that she should stop believing in these spirits, telling her that she should grow up, and really it shows that her character is kind of a symbolism for not wanting to grow up and rejecting the rigidity and boredom of adulthood, basically. I think she would really enjoy The Little Prince. And that aspect was absolutely wonderful and very well done. The characters in this book are really well done. We have a priest character who is like obsessed with Vasha and like religion, and we kind of get into his head, and he's like a very original, interesting dude that I hate, but I'm also intrigued by at the same time. And then also we have the character of the Frost, who is kind of like looming in the background the whole time. It's very mysterious. But what I didn't like about this book is kind of hard to say, because usually I can very easily tell if only this was different, if only that was different, then I would have loved this more. I don't really have that with this book. I think it just didn't click with me for some reason, but the only thing that I can honestly say that I think was not very good about this book is that it's slow in a way that it just takes too long for things to happen. You know, like it takes about 1/3 of the book for our main character to actually grow up. So we're not even following her main storyline until like almost halfway. And there's nothing wrong with slowly building plots. I think it actually worked well for this book, but because of that, you know, in the first 2/3 of the book, pretty much nothing happens really, and I really think this book would have benefited from a few like subplot lines. Just something to make the story a little more complex, because now it was just one linear plot line, and because it was so slow, it, you know, the last 100 pages were what made this book great for me. But before that, I don't know, just maybe it's just not my thing. But maybe I'll continue the series. We'll see. Then, the 5th book that I read this month was a non-fiction book that I listened to on audio, but I bought it in physical form as well, and that is Thinking Fast and Slow by Kahneman. He is a psychologist that won a Nobel Prize for economy. Why do you think? How is that working? Basically, the summary of this 500-page long book on psychology is: scientists, especially economists, assume that people are rational. They're not. In essence, this book is a lengthy exposition on how our thinking works, how biases work, our intuitive thinking versus our rational thinking. Basically, every way in which us humans are not as rational as we think that we are. If you're in any way interested in psychology, I think this is a very good... Jeez. If you're in any way interested in psychology, I think this is very interesting. If you just want to know more about how your thinking fast and slow works. I do have to say that for the longest time I was under the impression that this was a self-help book because someone like framed it to me like that, so I kind of ignored it, but it's not. If you are in any way under the impression that this is like a self-help book about how to become better at thinking or something, it's not. It's informative, written by like a highly esteemed psychologist, so recommend. And then the last book that I read this month took me completely by surprise, and that is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. If you've seen my reading vlog, you know that reading this book was like a full-on roller coaster for me because I just went into this with zero expectation and I came out of it absolutely adoring it. This book is about Eleanor Oliphant, who has a very normal life. You know, she just has her 9-to-5 job, she eats ready meals every day and then drinks her 2 bottles of vodka every weekend. Nothing has to be like great or exquisite. It's fine. It's fine, really. At first I was very annoyed with Eleanor because she's a extremely socially awkward and clueless person, which in a way is relatable, but also gave me so much secondhand embarrassment that it got a little annoying at one point. But the beauty of this book is that you really start to understand her and absolutely start to love her slowly because she is such a real person. Like, I've never read a book where I absolutely felt like I could just take the character and take her out of the book and she would just be a real human being. You start to understand her struggles, you learn about troubles that she had in her childhood that she's still struggling with. That makes for a perfect combination of like lighthearted comedy but also very well done emotional moments. And what I like a lot about this book is that it's very subtle in its emotions and feelings. You know, it's not like a very tragic or sentimental book. It's not emotional in the way that like The Fault in Our Stars is emotional. It's very subtle, but I as a reader just became very emotional over like the small things that were happening. And if a book can do that, that's a good sign. Hello, editing me here. There's one little thing that I forgot to say. Towards the end of the book I did think the story became extremely predictable. A lot of things were not surprising to me at all, but on the other hand I do think that maybe that's kind of the point, that as a reader you can very clearly see what's going to happen, but the point of the story is kind of waiting for the main character to develop in such a way that she also finds out what's going on. So I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that's quite interesting, actually. That's it. Bye. The central theme of this book is loneliness, and that is what this book has also been prized for. About Eleanor struggling with feeling lonely, it being kind of a taboo thing. It's not really something you talk about very quickly if you're feeling lonely, but this book tackles it beautifully. I think that's why this is also such a like award-winning, well-loved book, because I think everyone can kind of relate to it in some way. The feelings of loneliness are just very slow and they kind of creep up on you and then just like hit you like that. And that is exactly the way this book manages to make you emotional, in that very like same subtle slow way as loneliness can make you emotional. It's like a 4 or 5 stars, I'm not quite sure yet, but I recommend it to everyone because wow, what a good book. Fantastic. I didn't even drink my tea, that was really dumb. Is it cold? No, it's perfect reading temperature. Did I say reading temperature? Yeah, it's perfect drinking temperature now. So, those are all the books that I read this month. Look at me go. I'm really happy that I read so many. I know that I like 2 or 3 weeks ago made like an entire video about talking about how much trouble I had with not reading fast as a booktuber, and here I am just doing a wrap up in which I read 6. If I learned anything from this book, it's probably just like beginner's luck. There's gonna be regression to the mean and we'll see me read less in the upcoming months, if I understood that correctly. I really hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next with another one. Goodbye!